Godfrey, and they call me the Fact Master, because I'll tell you all those things you never knew you didn't know, and some that you do. I'm faster than Google, and everything I tell you is from up here, and that is a fact. Now, if you think about the race into space, it was really between two superpowers, America and Russia. And in the 1950s is when it all started. America ultimately believed they were going to get there first, but Russia had other ideas. And on the 4th of October 1957, the Russians launched Sputnik 1, and into space it went, much to the annoyance of America. Not only that, a month later, November 3rd, they sent another Sputnik into space, Sputnik 2, and this time they actually put a dog on board, a dog named Laika. Unfortunately, the dog didn't survive the journey, but it was the first ever, being from Earth to orbit the Earth was this dog Laika. Now America were getting a bit hacked off because we should have got there twice and they still done nothing. And by the end of 1950s, 1960 in fact, there was a change of president right at the end of 1960. In walked JFK. And on the 25th of May 1961, he stood up and he said, "We are going to put a man on the moon before this decade is out." He wanted to make sure the Russians knew that the Americans weren't messing about with this. And sure enough, that's what their focus was. But within 2 years, or just over 2 years of him making this speech, JFK was assassinated 22nd November 1963. But this race to space still went on, and they worked like Trojans to get an Apollo mission ready to go to space. And on the 16th of July 1969, up into the skies went Apollo 11. On board, 3 astronauts: Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins. 4 days later, became the first men ever to land on the moon. It was the 20th of July. And they touched down about 8:20 in the evening. And they waited for a while before they do anything. It was actually about 5 to 3 the next morning. Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon, the first man ever to do so. Stepped down there off the ladder with his left foot onto the surface. Half an hour later, Buzz Aldrin joined him, and they had a few things to do while they were there. But while they were there, spared a thought for Michael Collins. He'd gone all that way, 247,000 miles, just over. But he couldn't go on the moon. All he could do was drop him off and then wait in space, ready to pick him up again. It was like a, taxi to the moon, if you will. So these two, all they really did was they collected samples. They had work to do, samples, rocks and dust. That's what they did. They got them. A few days later, packed them in the bag. Michael Collins picked them up. Back to Earth. No problem. But what they did when they got back, they couldn't go into society because they'd been to the moon and nobody knew what was there or what effect it might have. So they were put into quarantine for 21 days. And while they were there, they couldn't see a soul. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with them. Nothing at all. They were perfectly fit and healthy. And what they did, when they were going to the moon, it turns out they couldn't get any insurance, these three. Nobody would insure any guy going to the moon, because nobody believed they'd actually get there, for one. And if they did get there, they certainly wouldn't be getting back. So they had no insurance. So what they did, is I know they had this big idea, thought they know. The three men signed a load of postcards and left these signed postcards with their families. So if the worst was to happen, the families could cash in by selling these postcards with their signatures on. Of course, they came back home. Postcards were worthless then. Nonetheless, Armstrong stepped on. They landed in the Sea of Tranquility. The eagle has landed, he said. And when he's on the moon, he says, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And history was made. Now since then, lots of other missions they did over a 2-year span. And a couple became famous after Apollo 11. Apollo 13 is the mission that left in 1970 on the 11th of April. Couldn't land on the moon. They had problems, so they had to come back home. They landed down on Earth in the water, 17th of April, all okay. Lots of people think Apollo 13, you know, they all perished. They did not perish. There was nothing wrong with them. They made the journey, couldn't go to the moon, came back. Thank you very much. All safe and sound. Apollo 14, the oldest man on the moon was on Apollo 14, Alan Shepard. And on the 6th of February 1971, there he is on the moon, and he hits 2 golf balls with a 6-iron. God knows how far they went. Pretty long way. Possibly the longest shots ever in golf. Nonetheless, the last mission was Apollo 17, and that left the moon on the 14th of December 1972. A guy called Eugene Cernan was the last man to step off the moon, and he did so that day. And from that day to this, man's never been back. Really, they know all they need to know. If they do go back, it'll probably be a man from China who'll be the next one to walk on the moon if it happens. Unlikely to be from anywhere else. That's a fact. And out of all the missions, 7 missions went, 6 missions were successful, 12 men walked on the moon. The other guy in the spacecraft was always had the short straw, couldn't walk on the moon, because they always went in 3s, but only 2 could walk. Out of those 12 men who did walk, 11 of those men were actually in the Boy Scouts, or had been. That's just a fact. But it was the 20th of July 1969, 8 years after Kennedy said, we're going to put a man on the moon. That man actually landed there. People, there's always debate, isn't there, you know, was it, wasn't it, did they, didn't they? Well, you know, to me, it seems they did. People say the flag wasn't blowing, but there's no wind on the moon, so the flag wouldn't blow. The flag wasn't on like a normal pole, it was on a frame, so it would hang straight all the time. And on the theories go, but they went to the moon, landed 20th of July, walked on the 21st, came back home, many missions more, but the last one, 14th of December 1972, and all Apollo, and that is a fact. I'm Wild Humphrey. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, because I'll be back with some more for you, and that is a fact. In the meantime, take it easy.